Okay, so now we've kind of walked through this, but the reality is this is not how we want to do this, implement it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete this, get rid of this. Okay. We don't want that, and we don't want this button. We don't really want none of this in here, okay? I'm just gonna have text as a placeholder. Okay. And of course, this, yeah, placeholder. Okay, so now let's go ahead and look at some of the stuff we have. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna make modifications to our networking service because this isn't how you go ahead and implement a networking service, right? Um, we're gonna go ahead and start by we see this networking service, right? And we're going to we're not gonna I'm not gonna allow to I'm not gonna allow um we're not going to create an instance directly. We're going to use protocols, okay? And so here's what we're going to do. What I want to do is create a networking service protocol for this networking service. Okay. So, networking service protocol. So I'm going to go here, networking service protocol. Let's go ahead and go to our protocols. Now, you guys, you might get confused by this. You're going to have to follow along. Okay. Networking service protocol. Okay. Okay. Make sure that this is, yeah, okay. Creating protocols. So inside protocols, I have networking service protocol, and I'm going to create a protocol inside of here called what? Networking service protocol. Protocol, networking service protocol. Okay. All right. And now, and all I want in this protocol is func, right? Fetch acronym data. Fetch acronym data. Remember, I explained protocols to you guys. So value is of course string. This is so that means that every time we implement this, this must have a method called fetch acronym data with these parameters, period. Okay. Completion, right? Must have an escaping, right? And this must return a result type, right? Result, right? Acronym object, error. Okay. This is it right here. Okay. And now let's go back to our networking service. Can I find networking service in scope? Now you can. What? Fetch acronym data, right? Because it has the parameters that it has what's required. Fetch acronym data, the function, and these are the parameters. So that means you pass this value to it. Okay. So now let's do one more thing. We're going to create another protocol. Okay. And this protocol is going to be called networking service provider. Okay. This is what we're going to use to instantiate. So I'm going to go here, new file, net. And so now we have the networking service provider, right? And for this protocol, we're going to say networking service provider. And actually, I'm going to do this. I guess it's not allowing me to rename. Okay, whatever. See here, networking service provider. Okay. And we're going to say, and it's just a property, networking service. So that means it must always have a property of type network that's called networking service, and should be the type networking service protocol. Okay, right? And there should be a get. Okay, not get set, just get. Okay. And by the way, when we do this, when we create this protocol, we're gonna have this networking service of type networking service protocol. This property is read only. That's what get means, read only. If I put a set in there as well, now it's readable and writable. But we don't want it to be writable. We want this just to be read only. Okay. So now both four protocols are done. Let's go back to our networking service is everything that we need it to be. Okay. And so now what we need to do is we're going to go to our content view. And let's go ahead and let's implement some of this functionality, right? So now I'm going to go over here. We're in here networking service. Now we're going to create our networking service implementation, right? So I'm going to go here, new file, here, networking service IMPL. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. C, create. Okay, now I'm going to do this. So the class networking service IMPL is of type networking service provider. Networking service provider. Okay. And you guys are probably gonna have to go and kind of like study this to get to understand the logic. Okay. So now that I see this right here, stubs, right? Okay. So we have networking service protocol. I'm going to say let's, right? And now, of course, we must have initializers, right? So I'm going to set this in an initializer. Okay. Networking service of type networking service protocol, right? Just like the property, right? And now, and we set it, right? So, and we're going to say self dot networking service, of course, equals what? Networking service, right? And as simple as that. And we should not have any more problems. Okay. So now this is our this is our provider right here. It works. So we have our networking service, we have our networking service implementation. And so now we're going to go to our content view. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of some of these. So and this, so definitely this has to go. This can't stay. Right? That's not how you do it. Okay? At state private var, okay, acronym type string equals, right, at state private var acronym data acronym data, okay, acronym object, right, optional, okay, add state. So this is going to be, our custom object. This is going to be what we pass to it, our pass to our networking service as a parameter for it to do our search. Okay. Give me a second. State. I hate when this does that. State error message, private var error MESS error message is an optional string, right? And then I'm going to say let networking service provider networking service provider of type networking service provider. Okay. Now, of course, we're gonna have a problem with here, right? Because we need a constructor, right? As you can see, if I build, right, there needs to be a constructor, argument missing, networking service provider, right there when it's called. So let's go back here, content view. Okay, that's the problem, right? Because remember, when you do your preview, it's making an instance of this view, and this is the property that's not being set. But let's go ahead and create an initializer where we set it. Init, okay, init networking service provider, init, okay, net working service provider, something that we see right here. V colon of type C V K self dot networking service provider equals networking service provider. And that should fix that for now. And but this still has to be fixed. Don't worry, I'm gonna get to that. Okay. So let's go down here. So what we're gonna do is we're going to set default values with the networking service provider implementation. Okay. And we're gonna do it like this. And I'm gonna come back and explain this more. Networking service provider, right? Okay, we have that. Service provider equals networking service implementation. Networking service, networking service, networking service, right? Service, that's networking service, networking service, networking service, session dot shared, right? Let me see, make sure this stuff is, yeah, there we go. That's done correctly. Okay. Content, okay, yeah, networking service provider, type networking service implementation, networking service, yes. And so you have to come back and just read that all over again just so you can get a good grasp of what's going on with that. And then we also have to do this one other place, right? We have this right here, content, and then we should where is the this right here? So if I go ahead and build this, and I should have this same issue right here. Okay, let's go back. Content view. I'm going to say content view right here. I'm going to copy that. Go here. Content view. I'm going to copy this and then paste it there. And there we go. And this should, and boom, there we go. Right here. So now we have that, right? There should be no errors, no bugs, right? But what we have to do, we still have to go ahead and get this thing running, okay? Because it's not running, okay? All right. So now we're here in this, we need to go ahead and start adding the functionality. We have this, and we're doing it this way. We're making a reference to our networking service provider and our networking service, but we aren't instantiating it directly in our view. And remember, a lot of this implementation is actually going to be out of the view and in a view model if we're doing MVVM. But for now, we're leaving this right here because I'm not trying to throw too much in your face at one time. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and let's get busy. Okay, so now um mm, so I'm going to go ahead and come back here and we're going to create a text view. Okay. All right, so first of all, we're gonna have it not a text view, but a text field. Text field. Okay. And I'm going to say enter an acronym and acronym. Enter an acronym, right? And it should be of type text. And I want this to be this value, acronym, this state value. Okay. So whenever I add something to this text field, it's going to set this value. Okay. Sorry. And so now let's go ahead and add some attributes to this. Okay. Um, text field style, text, sorry, dot text field style, and rounded rounded border, text field style. Okay. Okay. Dot padding. Okay. 0. Okay. All right. Now we have this. And let me go ahead and build this. And there we go. Right here. All right. So now let's see, padding, and then we're gonna have a button under it, right? Button, and this button is gonna be action, right? Right, action. And action, we're gonna call a function fetch acronym data. Okay, so, but we don't have this yet. Let's go in here, data right here. Fetch acronym data, and the text should be search text. And search. Okay. Let's go. We cannot find a method of type fetch called fetch acronym data. Why? Because we haven't created it yet. So let's go ahead and create it. Let me see something. Fetch acronym data. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to say private func fetch acronym data. Okay. All right, now that we have this, I'm going to say, so this error up here should go away because now we actually have it. Cool. And remember, because this is here, this is automatically set here, automatically changes this, right? And it's gonna change that value wherever it is going to be used. Okay, so let's go ahead and go. Now we're gonna go ahead and make the call to networking service provider, right? Networking service provider dot networking service dot fetch acronym data, right? And this right should be what? The value should be what? Acronym, right? Right? Up here, acronym. That's what it should be. Okay. Go here, return, right? Results. And now we have this. And now we're going to put this on the main queue. And how do you do that? Dispatch queue dot what? Dot main, dot async, right? So this is on the main queue. Now we're gonna say switch, right? Results, right? Switch results. Okay, and we're gonna say case dot succeed, right? Success. And we're gonna say let acronym data, acronym data, right? Case acronym data and okay, case dot failure, right? And we're gonna say let error, right? Okay, now let's do things, different things. In the case of success, what we're going to say is we're going to say self dot acronym data equals what? Acronym data, right? And then we're also going to say error message equals nil. Self dot error message equals nil. Okay. And the reverse goes here, right? Self dot acronym data, right, equals nil, and self dot error message equals error dot localized description. Okay, and yeah, so this is fetching our data, right? And so yes, and let's go ahead and we can test and see if we are actually getting anything back. So let's do this. Print. Print this to the console. Data, right? We'll say acronym data. Okay. Right. And then we'll also go to here and we'll say error. Okay. So if we have an error, we'll say error. Okay. Error. We'll say error. Right. Dot localized description. All right. Give me a second. All right. So now what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go and right. And now I'm going to say li, right? Search. And of course, yes, I'm returning back some data, right? Right. I'm gonna say, let's say, let me clear out this AI, right? Yes, and you can see, yeah, I'm returning stuff. Now, let me do one more thing because this is one thing I absolutely despise with some of this. I hate how the text fields behave. Text field, um, I'll worry about that later. Okay, so now this is working, right? And we are getting back we're pulling back data for our networking service. So I want you to understand the difference between that and what we did last time, okay? You notice here, we aren't creating any instance of, there is no instance of our networking service that we're creating, right? This was created, our networking service was given to us by our provider, right? Right here, networking service provider, and then networking service and fetch acronym data, okay? It was not, our networking service was not instantiated in our view or a view model, you know, it was done through our networking service provide that's the protocol and our implementation right here. Okay. And then we did it through here in our content view, where we had to get access to our networking service right here and in here, right? Again, we had to get access to our networking service through our networking service provider. This is where we implemented our networking service provider to access our networking service. And so then back in our content view, all we have to do is make a reference to the networking service provider, right? So all we have to do is make reference to the networking service provider, and we get the rest. Now, do you necessarily have to do it this way to make it function? No. But as time goes on and your app gets bigger, these are the best practices for implementing your networking service. Okay. So what I'm gonna do next is in the next video, we're going to finish up the project and get a list back and wrap this up. And then we're going to talk about some of the other patterns for a networking service. On to the next.